Hello, Roy here on my channel Roy Reads Anything, and going to talk to you about a unjustly neglected author that a bunch of us are going to read some of his stuff in July. Rogue July we're calling it, for reasons that will become apparent. So Hugh Walpole used to be super famous, like really popular. His books were bestsellers, went into multiple editions. People would name their children after characters in his books. There was a space of Vanessas and Judiths. But, you know, time passes. Nobody's that interested anymore. He's seen as kind of a sort of a, oh yeah, my mum had those kind of author, really. But he's really good. I can tell you, based on what I have read of him, that he's unfailingly entertaining and does well worth a look. So that's why, well, I set myself the task of reading some Hugh Walpole works, and other folks have joined in, and it's kind of grown to be a little sort of event that anybody can do. So there are co-hosts. There's Shawn Standfast, there's Mark, Book Time with Elvis, there's Debs at Raynor Reads stuff. So us and other fellow travellers will be wallowing in Walpole for weeks in July. So, like I say, I've read some Hugh Walpole work. He wrote across various different genres. There are supernatural gothic stories that are very good. There's historicals. There are sort of contemporary fiction. He wrote a series about I think it's about a boy growing up called Jeremy, who has a dog as well. So, you know, all very varied. And like I say, a popular author of yore, not to be confused with Horace Walpole of Castle of Otranto fame. So these are books that came out between 1909 and his death in 1941. So the event is to do with, centres on Rogue Herries. Okay, so Rogue Herries is probably Hugh Walpole's most famous book. Let's see what he said about it on his AuthorTube channel of the time.
But I engage myself at the moment on a novel that is going to be 4 separate novels and cover 200 years, all about the same family. And you'll be able to read each volume separately without having to read the others.
Yeah, Rogue Herries. So basically, if you want to join in, the idea is get hold of Rogue Herries and read it. One super famous, presumably very good book. Some of us will be going further. So Rogue Herries is part of a group of 4 novels. So it's like it turns into a saga, multi-generational saga set in the Lake District. Okay, so the Lake District is a area of England in the northwest, mountains, lakes, and people used to see it as this terrible barren wilderness, but then that kind of flipped into the romantic idea that it was actually a sublime landscape, and the Wordsworth lived there and Hugh Walpole lived there, and you know, it sort of makes an interesting setting for the books, although apparently surprisingly lacking in serious fiction. So the saga here, Rogue Herries, is followed by Judith Paris, followed by The Fortress, followed by Vanessa. So you got a sequence of books going from the, I think, 17th century up to the end of the 19th century. Some of us will go further than the original Rogue book and try and read all 4. It is possible to go further because Walpole started off on another sequence of 4. So there's a prequel called The Bright Pavilions, and there is another prequel called Catherine Christian, although this one apparently unfinished. So Walpole died, and that was the end of that. So total Walpole headbangers will maybe try and read the extra two as well at some point. But like I say, scalable. If you don't fancy or maybe have already read the Rogue Herries novel, why not just read a short story? Like I say, you got a writer here wrote in lots of different genres. His supernatural stuff's really good. It was a werewolf story called The Tarnhelm that originally got me into him. And you can pick those up on there's online versions that are really good collections, but lots of other stuff as well. In fact, as a sort of side mission, tracking down Walpole books is quite fun because he was used to be famous, isn't anymore. They tend to be not expensive, apart from genuine rarities. So you get some fantastic hardbacks, you get funky paperbacks in various crazy editions, as per previous video. Less like this one with its lovely cover. So just searching out Hugh Walpole is quite fun. And the one thing that's kept him alive in the culture is the mention in a Monty Python sketch, the cheese shop.
I was sitting in the public library of Sherman Street just now, skimming through Rogue Herries by Horace Walpole.
So another side mission would be to visit a cheese shop, or the closest thing you can find to a cheese shop in these benighted times. I'll leave it to you whether you actually act out the John Cleese sketch. So an interesting writer, as well as writing across genres. His position in things is interesting. I mean, he knew everybody. He knew lots of literary figures of the time. He seems to have been seen as being either too highbrow or not highbrow enough. So Graham Greene describes him as being this sort of pompous figure. He spotted him at a literary event talking to Edgar Wallace, and he describes Hugh Walpole as being like a bishop talking to an annoying person from his diocese. Was Virginia Woolf, who was mate of his, but she took the view that he was wasting his talent on these wretched novels, particularly because as a gay man who didn't really write explicitly about that, probably to not go to prison, he was like missing out on a whole, he wasn't addressing his direct real experience fully. Well, I think that's debatable when you actually read some of the text, but yes, so who knows? I mean, personally, I think someone who could produce a big body of work, be collected by people who would get these sort of sets, want their full library of Hugh Walpole with matching spines. Obviously, people would read it based on it being him rather than necessarily reading because of whatever genre it was. They must have something going for them, and I think that's a real skill to be able to entertain and engage people in that way. But let's see. So Rogue July. Never mind about all the dozens of books and stuff. All it's about is read Rogue Herries, then you can be a rogue too. If you want to do more, that's fine. Want to just read a little story, that's fine. I have taken the opportunity to make another badge to go on the old booktube battle vest I'm working on. So I've got a few more of these. Whoops. And you may be wondering, I'm always saying, oh, here's a badge if you want one. Why? Why do I spend time giving badges away? Just to be clear, there's no money changes hands. I just like badges, especially if they focus on the camera. Yes. This is my art, so seriously, if you want a badge, that's great. And I've made it's a no context, baffling image that will entrance anyone who peers at your chest when you're wearing it. Okay, so Rogue July. This is an announcement, something that's in the future. So we'll be kicking off in next month. Oh yes, so there's extra chatter about it on my Discord. I'll link to that, and Shawn Standfast has got a Voxer group going. I'll link to that as well if I can figure out how. Yes, Walpole. The future's Walpole. Okay, back soon with something else. Bye.
I wish you luck in the reading of them.